Hello and welcome to this lesson on Latin Scansion. Today in this short lesson we're going to be covering the basics of learning how to scan Latin poetry. What we mean by scansion is the method used to determine the rhythm or meter of a line of poetry. Like in English poetry, Latin poetry uses meter to give it a rhythmic quality, but unlike in English poetry, where rhythm comes from the stress put on different syllables, the rhythm of Latin poetry comes from the use of short and long syllables in different combinations. Using Scansion not only helps to make Latin poetry come alive, it can also aid in translation. For example, two words may look identical to us, so here we have multa and multa. So in the first example, multa with a short a, and this is the symbol we use to signify that a syllable is short, is the nominative or accusative plural in the neuter of multus, meaning many. And in this example, multa, with a long a at the end, signifies that it's a feminine ablative singular of multus, many. So by scanning a line of poetry, by working out where the different longs and shorts fall, this can aid us in translation. Sometimes this is apparent by the context, but many times it's not. And often Latin poets like to play around with this, and so sometimes it requires a little bit more figuring out. So, how do we determine whether a syllable is short or long? A syllable is short when it contains a short vowel followed by a simple consonant or by another vowel. So in these examples, we have pater, so the A here is short, in pater, father, because it's followed by a simple consonant. And this example, deus, God, the E is short because it's followed by another vowel, U. Just move down here. And a syllable is long when it contains a long vowel or a diphthong. If you're not familiar what a diphthong is, that's just the term for two vowels which come together to make one sound. So for example, here we have frater, brother, where the A is long. Sometimes this requires looking in the dictionary, as some words just naturally have long sounds and others don't. But in this example here, kaides, slaughter, we see AE come together to form the diphthong I, so this is conventionally a long sound. One thing to note is a vowel which is normally short can become long when it's followed by two consonants. So this example here, we have simplex. Now the E in simplex is naturally long, and the I here also becomes long because of the three consonants M, P, and L which follow it. So simplex naturally then has two long syllables. For the remainder of this lesson, we will focus on the meter of one genre of Latin poetry, that of epic poetry. Each genre in Latin poetry often will use a different meter to set it apart from other genres. They often have a very specific, distinctive rhythm. So the meter for epic poetry is known as dactylic hexameter. There we go. And you may be thinking, what on earth does that mean? So we will break it down. This requires a little bit of cross-language knowledge. So both of these words come from Greek originally. So if we start with hexameter, this means 6 meters or measures. So hexa here comes from the Greek hexa, meaning 6, which means there are 6 individual measures, or we call them feet, within the line. So each foot is a specific combination of different syllable lengths, so different combinations of longs and shorts. And dactylic refers to the dactyl, which is a long, a short, and a short. So a long syllable followed by 2 shorts, which forms 1 foot in the line. So hexameter tells us there are 6 feet in the line, and dactylic tells us what the most common type of foot is. There are many, many different types of combinations of these longs and shorts, but for now we will be focusing on dactyls, which look like this, and spondies, which are 2 longs. This is a spondee, and trochees, which are a long and a short. So the conventions now, if we set it out in a table, which is often helpful to do, maybe at the top of your page, just as a little key. So hexameter tells us we have 6 feet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The first foot must start with a long. So it can either be a dactyl, which is long, short, short, or it can be a spondy, which is long, long. Our second foot also can either be a dactyl, long, short, short, or spondy, long, long. The third foot can be either a dactyl, long, short, short, trochee, long, long. The fourth foot, again, can be a dactyl or a spondy. And the fifth foot is very important. The fifth foot often will tell you the name of the meter. So the fifth foot is almost always exclusively a dactyl. So long, short, short. And the sixth foot can either be a trochee, long, short, or a spondy, long, long. So now that we've got this as our key, we can put it into practice by looking at the first line of Virgil's Aeneid, which is a very famous Latin epic poem. You probably have heard of it if you've ever read any Latin before. So the first thing we need to do is break it down into its individual syllables, and this will help us work out where each foot will fall within the line. So here we have arma, we have virum, que, cano. And then for Troii, because Troii is made up of 2 diphthongs, so we have oi and I, so we split them up like that, so they're 2 separate syllables. Qui is 1 syllable, primus, and ab or ris. So here we split it up into the individual syllables so we can work out which ones are long and which ones are short. And I'm going to switch colour for this to make it a bit easier to see. So if we refer to our key, looking at the top, we know that the first syllable must be a long, so we can put that in. And we know that ma must be short because it's not followed by a double consonant or a diphthong. And the same deal for we. So there we have our first foot, which is a dactyl. So we can put that as number 1 at the top, just to keep track. It's always good to count up at the end whether you've got 6 when you're scanning a line of hexameter. Sometimes you end up with 4 or 7, and then you know you've made a mistake somewhere down the line. The next one must be a long because it's the start of the foot, but also we know this because of the M and the Q, 2 consonants which come after the vowel U. So rum is long, que is short, and the same deal with ka, because there is nothing which would mean that the syllable would be long. So this is our second foot. So let's put a number 2 up there. So far we have 2 dactyls. No must be long because it's the start of the foot, and also it comes before 2 consonants as well as a diphthong. So we know the diphthong must be long. So this is our third foot, which is a spondy, which if you remember is 2 longs. The fourth foot starts with a diphthong, so we know it's long, I. Qui, as a word, is also long, so it's always good to look up in the dictionary, which will often have a little dash over the long vowels in certain words. So that's good to keep in mind. That's our fourth foot. And now our fifth foot, we know from the table, is normally a dactyl, but it's always good just to double check. So primus ab, there we go, there's our dactyl. Foot number 5. And now our sixth foot must start with a long or, and then because it can be either a short or a long, some people like to put an X because often you don't know how long this final syllable is without looking at the line that comes beneath it. So in the case of this first line, the sentence doesn't end at this line. It continues on for quite a while at the beginning of the poem, so there's no way of knowing whether this one is long or short. And so there we go, we've got our 6 feet, which form our line of hexameter, and we have successfully scanned our first line of Latin poetry.